Hey guys, COHD here, and I am back with another reaction video. As you can tell, it's dark in here and I have a lantern on. Why is it dark in here? It's because in this video I'm going to react to more of the MLP Creepypasta fanfics, and I thought to myself I would continue on reacting to them. And yes, the reason why it's dark in here is because, of course, Creepypasta has to do with the dark, so yeah. And this Creepypasta fanfic is called Sweet Apple Massacre, and it's a two-parter video. So, yeah, I'm pretty much excited to check this out, so let's go ahead and get this started. In 3, 2, 1, play.
You know, I bet as you were sitting there in your snuggly-wuggly little beds, thinking to yourself,
"Oh yay, Mike forgot to do Sweet Apple Massacre,
Okay, then.
yay!"
No.
Celestia.
I was just waiting.
Wait
Ladies
for
and
what?
gentlemen, today's clopfic is going to be called
Oh, I thought my
Sweet
phone was
Apple
ringing.
Massacre.
Yep,
Many of you
Sweet
are
Apple
familiar
Massacre.
with this, and I am going to make it fantastic because I am going to do the voices to the best of my ability. So strap yourselves in. Shit's about to get very, very real. Here we go.
Yep.
Sweet Apple Massacre.
This is gonna be scary.
Big Macintosh surveyed the many apple trees that made up Sweet Apple Acres. It was nearly apple buck season once again, and it looked as though they would be having a bumper harvest this year. He
Of
nodded,
course.
satisfied. His sister Applejack
Spike
walked
smile.
up beside him.
Oh, boy, howdy. I sure am glad you ain't injured this time, Big Macintosh.
She said.
Okay, we
Why,
have
there's
Applejack.
even more apples on them trees than last year.
Yep. Big Macintosh replied in his characteristic manner.
So,
"Them's a lot
how
of
come this
apples."
is called Sweet Apple
Applejack was
Massacre
silent for a
if
moment,
there's a
enjoying
picture of
the
Spike
feel
on
of the slight
screen?
breeze against her
I don't get
blonde
it.
mane.
Say, I don't suppose
Oh,
you've
and there's
seen Apple Bloom
Applejack.
anywhere, have you? I've been looking
course,
for
in
her all
Twilight's
day and she
house.
ain't nowhere to be found.
Big Macintosh shook his head. "Sorry, sis, can't say I have."
Darn, that silly filly's probably gone off somewhere with her friends. I just hope she ain't getting herself into any
Apple Bloom?
mischief, or else this
I
could
bet
be
it's Apple
pay
Bloom
to
because
pay.
"Don't you go worrying
She-
yourself,
Applejack is
Applejack,"
always looking out
he
for Apple Bloom.
replied. "I'm sure she's perfectly fine. But anyway, I need to get back to the barn. I gotta go press some apples for some of my home-brewed apple cider. I have picked a few apples earlier especially, all nice and plump and ripe, and they ain't gonna press themselves." Applejack laughed.
You sure
Oh.
do love your cider, don't you?
And there's
Just make
Twilight.
sure Apple Bloom don't
Of
get her
course, the
hooves on
crazy
again.
Twilight
We all
from,
know what happened last time.
Big Macintosh
Lesson
chuckled along
0?
with his sister. "Yep."
Yeah, we do
The
get the
large
point
red
where
pony trotted
Twilight
back to the
becomes
barn and
crazy
gently closed
in
the door.
Lesson
He
0.
opened a trap door with his mouth and went down the steps into an old, disused apple cellar. Usually it was just filled with junk, scrap metal, old worn-out plows, old rope, and various other bits and bobs that had outlived their usefulness. Big Macintosh often came down here when he wanted to get away from
So
the
where are the
and stall for a
CMC?
little
Because
while for some
the
peace
story
and
had to
quiet.
do with the CMC.
Today was different, however. The old rope, at least,
I
had
don't
found
know,
a use,
actually.
because in the cellar space where
Wow,
Apple
that's
Bloom and her
some,
fellow Cutie Mark Crusaders,
pretty
Sweetie
interesting,
Belle and Scootaloo,
fan art
bound and
there.
gagged, propped up against the wall. 3 pairs of scared, round eyes looked up at Big Macintosh as he approached. "Now then, y'all 3 fillies," he said, as placid as ever. "Y'all gonna learn a lesson. You need to learn not to mess around with Big Macintosh.
Yep,
All I want
never
is
mess with
some
Big
peace
Macintosh."
and quiet," he said, looking directly at Apple Bloom. The little red-haired filly cowered under his gaze. "All I want is a quiet life, without all y'all Cutie Mark Crusaders running around the place making with the noise. When I'm finished with
Yeah,
y'all, they're gonna
pretty
be
much
no
you'll
noise
just
from
be
me
in-
ever again."
You know,
As Big Macintosh approached,
just
Scootaloo
be, yeah, be
flapped
at
her
the Golden
wings,
Oak Library.
struggling to get
That's
off
a
the
pretty
ground.
quiet place.
Big Macintosh laughed and grabbed one of her wings. He twisted, at first slow, watching the pain visibly grow in her eyes. But then he tore hard, smiling slightly when he heard the snap and the muffled whimper that came from Scootaloo. He then threw her to the ground. "Your wings are useless, you silly filly," he said pleasantly. He then went to a toolbox and took out a rusty knife with a jagged blade and dropped it in front of the 3 fillies.
Are you serious?
"I'm gonna take off
Now
those
we get to the
tails
point
now,"
where Big
he
Macintosh is,
said. "First one
hurting
to
the
scream
fillies.
gets their tongue cut out." He took off Sweetie Belle's
Vinyl.
tie. She looked up at him with terror, but managed to stay quiet. Next was Scootaloo. She let out a strangled whine and was breathing heavily, still in horrendous pain from her broken wing, but managed to resist the temptation. Finally, he removed the gag from his sister Applebloom. She stared at him with her large, round eyes, filled with fear and incomprehension. This was Big Macintosh,
Oh, wow.
after all. Her big brother and the gentlest
Why
of
would Big
souls.
Mac do that?
Wasn't he? Surely this was a horrible joke. But she had seen what
A
she had
horrible
done
joke.
to Scootaloo's wing. It was definitely
Is that like
no joke.
some joke you could come up with?
She took a deep breath.
Applejack!
Big Macintosh shoved his hoof into Applebloom's mouth, silencing her scream.
Oh
He
no.
sighed and shook his head. I told you not to scream, Applebloom. You should listen to your big brother.
But-
I'll scream and scream again, and Applejack will hear
But
it.
Big Mac, what do you think you're doing?
No, I kinda
Snap
hope
out of
you
it, please.
After all, I still ain't forgiven Applejack for that injury she gave me last Applebuck season. If you want Applejack to join y'all down here, scream away. I, for one, would welcome her company. But now, to business. Big
Oh,
Macintosh picked up the knife and loomed over the cowering Applebloom.
that's a
He
creepy
pinned her down with a
picture
powerful
for
hook and
Applebloom.
stuck the knife into Applebloom's mouth. Sweetie Belle vomited at the sight, the thick
Ew.
yellow chunks and acidic
Don't vomit in
swelling
front of
liquid
me.
splattering heavily on
This
the
is
floor.
gross.
Scootaloo managed not to be sick, but rather gasped and sobbed and choked with panic. Big Macintosh forced open Applebloom's mouth and with some effort cut out her tongue. Applebloom tried to scream, but her mouth was too full of blood,
Oh, you know
so
what?
it was more of a muted.
You know what? I'm just gonna turn on the lights, because this is just freaking me out. Okay. Everything's settled. Back to the video.
Gurgle. After a short while, she collapsed, tears streaming from her eyes, falling unconscious from the shock and the pain. Big Macintosh then took the tongue and rolled it in the puddle of putrid vomit on the floor. He smiled at Scootaloo. You hungry?
Yeah,
Scootaloo
don't
shook her
feed
head
that to
vigorously
Scootaloo,
and
no.
cast him a defiant glare.
If Rainbow Dash were here, she would kick the crap out of you, you maniac!
Big Macintosh shrugged. Well, she ain't. And anyway, I wouldn't be so
Yeah,
sure
Rainbow
about
Dash
that.
isn't there, Scoots.
Rainbow Dash ain't
Sorry.
as tough as she likes to make out.
Hold on.
He shoved
go.
the vomit-covered tongue into Scootaloo's mouth and used his hoof to clamp her mouth shut.
Ugh.
Don't you go trying to spit it out now, he said calmly, with a little laugh as the filly struggled and squirmed. Didn't your mother ever tell you how important it is to chew your food?
Wait, isn't her
Scootaloo
mother
closed
dead?
her eyes and flapped her one good wing desperately, eventually swallowing Applebloom's tongue. Big Macintosh,
Ew,
still
oh.
holding the writhing Scootaloo down,
And now we
with
have
his
Rainbow
strong
Dash.
hooves, then mounted
Wow.
the orange filly and slid his penis into her tight
Ew.
virgin pussy, raping her for several minutes while Sweetie Belle watched, trembling.
Are you
with revulsion.
serious?
Applebloom was still out cold, blood pouring from her torn-up mouth. Cutie Marcus
Screw that.
says rape victims.
Screw that.
Macintosh said with tender mockery as he fucked Scootaloo, followed by a gentle chuckle. Guess y'all found your purpose in life now. Your special talent is getting raped. Yup. Eventually, he withdrew from Scootaloo and gripped her head tight and repeatedly punched her hard with a hook in the face.
Wait,
causing
punched her
nose
hard
to
out?
shatter and spurt with blood. He scooped up some of the blood and some of Sweetie Belle's vomit with his tongue and held it
Ew!
in his mouth,
God,
so that it
no.
mixed in with the saliva. Then brought his
I
mouth
would
close
not
to Scootaloo's and
lick
spat
vomit.
the rank mixture into her mouth. He clamped his hoof over her mouth and held her nose until she gagged.
It
and
feels like we're
had
going
no
back
choice
into
but to swallow.
Mandrake
As
Sipicac.
Scootaloo retched and spat and cried, he turned to Sweetie Belle. He grabbed her easily as she was too shocked
This
and traumatized
pleases
to respond.
Big
And with
Macintosh.
apparent amusement, he
No, it does
pounded
not.
one up Scootaloo's ass. The
Ew.
horn was too big and hard, so the skin around Scootaloo's ass ripped and blood and fecal matter first trickled and then poured profusely down onto Sweetie Belle's face, as well as urine as Scootaloo pissed herself. You keep
Ew.
doing that, Sweetie Belle.
Yeah, I would
he
piss
said.
myself if
The unicorn carried on, pushing
I
her
was,
horn up
like,
Scootaloo's anus,
tortured to death.
slowly but surely. Her normal, well-groomed pink and purple mane was now stained a reddish brown, glistening with the wetness of the piss and blood. If you stop, I'll come over there and, get creative. I may seem a bit dense, but I'm actually quite a creative stallion. Big Macintosh.
Come on, Big
said
Mac,
eagerly.
snap out of it!
Yep.
Gosh darn it!
He
Oh.
went to Applebloom and penetrated his little sister's unconscious body with his hard cock. While he violated her, he got another knife, this one sharp and shiny, and sliced open her flank. causing her glistening intestines to flop out wetly onto the floor.
No,
He
no,
glanced
not
over
Apple
and was
Bloom,
pleased to see
no!
Sweetie Belle was still using her horn to anally penetrate Scootaloo, and her face was now completely covered in blood and feces and urine. Well, I don't know about you, but I'm enjoying this
Really?
in quite a big way.
You had to add
This
that.
concludes part 1 of Sweet
The guy
Apple
with the thumbs
Massacre.
up.
If you would like to see part 2, please click on the annotation located dead center upon Big Mac
Oh,
that just
that was
says,
it?
Yep. Anyways, I'll see you all in part 2.
Well, okay then. Looks like we're going to part 2 now, so, moving on. Okay, so I'm back, and I got part 2 up and ready, so yeah. Yeah, Sweet Apple Massacre part 2. And the reason why I turned off the fan, it was getting cold in here, so... Yeah, let's go ahead and get this started. In 3, 2, 1, start.
Hello and welcome to part 2 of Sweet Apple Massacre. I am Michael
Yeah,
Delacorte,
that
alias Mike the Microphone,
dramatic
here to
music
bring
and,
you
of course, sound
the second
effects.
half of Sweet
And
Apple
just with the
Massacre
characters.
by I don't fucking know. Here we go, part 2 of Sweet Apple Massacre. He turned his attention back to Apple Bloom and scooped up her crimson
Once
entrails
you
and wrapped them
go
around her neck,
back,
still fucking the
you
filly.
can't
And
go
with his
back.
front hooves, he pulled and pulled until it was wrapped so tightly around Apple Bloom's neck that it broke her windpipe.
Ugh.
She was now surely dead, but Big Macintosh continued fucking her furiously until her body began to lose form and collapse into a quivering, amorphous mass of fur and blood and flesh. The perennial
Dude, that
had
is just
fallen away,
gross.
leaving a single red and raw gaping void. He carried on until he was fucking nothing but a single swollen
Oh,
and bloody orifice.
God, why
and then
did we do
discarded his baby
this?
sister's carcass as though she were nothing more than a rotten apple core. He then took the knife and grabbed Sweetie Belle and tossed
Will
her
men
aside. He
cry?
forced himself into Scootaloo's ruined anus, and then took the knife and cut from her ass in a sweeping
And of
motion
course,
up to her
there's
belly,
cold
and
Big
all her
Macintosh.
innards fell out.
And of
He
course,
then
Granny
grabbed
Smith.
her head, twisted and tore it clean off, using his immense strength.
It
and
looks like a
fucked it in the
legendary
mouth and then
Granny
tossed it
Smith.
aside. He then had sex with her headless body, both on the vagina
Ew.
and the ass until he got bored.
Now she started
Sweetie
kissing
Belle
it.
was the
Oh,
last remaining cutie mark
and we
crusader.
have
She
the
was herself
CMC
barely conscious,
in their
overcome with the nauseous
costumes
stench
at
of
the
blood, shit, and piss
big
that
talent
covered
show?
her horn and her face. Big Macintosh pinned Sweetie Belle down with his hoof and plunged the knife into her green eye and twisted, causing vitreous fluid to dribble out onto the handle. At that, Sweetie Belle let out a throaty whine and involuntarily emptied her bowels, and the aroma of fresh urine
No,
and feces
not
filled
Sweetie
the atmosphere
Belle.
once again. He withdrew the knife and did the same to the other eye, each time holding her tight and sticking his hoof into her mouth to silence her agonized screams. He licked the vitreous fluid that had leaked out onto the knife, and then methodically began
gosh, dude.
cutting and hacking at her.
You know what?
throat
I'm
with
thinking I'm
using
about to
the
get
rusty
sick.
knife. The knife was quite blunt,
But how
so
come
it took a
it's
Herculean
not actually
effort to get
happening?
through the skin, bone, and cartilage. But
Is there like
eventually
an
the
audio
bone
dub
splintered
of
and the
this
leg
story?
came off. He did
Let
the
me know in the
same to her
comments.
other legs until all four were amputated and nothing remained but bloody stumps with slimy white ligament and broken bone shards hanging out. At some point, Sweetie Belle had passed out, the overwhelming pain too much for her to bear. He then used the knife to gouge out her left eye and jammed his penis into her eye socket,
Ew.
penetrating repeatedly deep into her brain.
Yeah,
enjoying
don't do
how
that.
tight her skull felt around his hard shaft and how warm and squishy the brain matter felt against the tip of his throbbing penis. As he did, he twisted
Oh.
Sweetie Belle's neck. After he had
And
finished
there's
skull-fucking
a
her, he
rainbow
cracked
dash.
open her skull with a swift
Again.
stamp of the hoof and bent
Wait.
down and ate some of the exposed
Oh,
brain, taking care to
wait.
spit
I
out
think
a few
they're
fragments of
showing the
skull bone
pictures
that
of
mixed
how
in
the
as he
characters
chewed.
are reacting to
It
the
was warm and
story.
slimy and tough.
Now
and
I
stuck to
get
the back of his
it.
throat. He swallowed and then raped Sweetie Belle in the ass until it tore open and his engorged penis was smeared with what little fecal matter remained in her rectum. He took one of Sweetie Belle's detached legs and shoved it inside her ass, and then fucked
Ew.
Apple Bloom and Scootaloo's
No,
body the same
don't do
way,
that.
forcing the amputated limb in, hoof first, as far
Oh,
as it could
God, who
go.
took time to
He thought
write
how
this
strange it
story?
was that the still lumps of
Oh,
torn flesh that he
I
was
have the
fucking with
weirdest
Sweetie Belle's leg had been so
boner?
vibrant and alive such a short time ago. But now,
Well,
all
okay
three
then,
were dead,
Applejack.
and he finished by spurting his voluminous load into Apple Bloom's destroyed backside. He
Eh.
watched with satisfaction as the semen and blood and shit mixed together, forming a foamy maroon pool. He bent down and greedily lapped up
Now
some
it's
with
getting
his tongue,
full of
pressing
foam?
his tongue deep into her anal cavity so as not to miss any, letting some dribble down his chin. It tasted foul, of course, a rancid, tangy slime that burned his throat, but it felt so satisfying. He swallowed the filthy goo and wiped his
God.
mouth with a hoof. It was done.
Why would I
Big
take time to
Macintosh would
react to
finally put his piece in
creepypastas?
Big Macintosh, you down there?
It was
Don't
Applejack.
like
He
music.
looked at the
Sucks to
disfigured
be
corpses
you.
of the 3 fillies, all now barely recognizable as the oh-so-sweet Cutie Mark Crusaders.
Yeah,
and
that's right,
realized he felt
Applejack.
strangely unsatisfied.
Give back Big
It
Mac
had
what
all
you
been a
got.
bit too quick and easy. Now Applejack, that would be a challenge. She was Ponyville's best athlete, after all.
Of
She even
course,
had the
Applejack
prize pony
is
of
the best
Ponyville
athlete.
trophy to prove it. And, of course, he still hadn't forgiven her for that injury. He felt his penis stiffen once again in anticipation.
Hey, Big Mac, I said, are you down there?
Came Applejack's
Is
lilting voice again,
is Big Mac
this time
not
more insistent.
answering?
Big Macintosh replied serenely.
I sure am, sis. Hey, come down here a minute. I've got something to show you.
Sure
Uh-oh.
thing. What is it?
It's a
Applejack's gonna be
surprise.
shocked with
Oh,
you.
boy, I sure do love surprises. Something real nice, I bet.
Something real nice? Big Macintosh looked at the mangled, mutilated remains of the Cutie Mark Crusaders, and his lips curled into a thin smile. Yup. Well, that certainly
No,
was
not
an
thumbs
enchanting
up.
story.
Thumbs
I must
down.
admit. I hope you all enjoyed it, because I certainly did. Now, if you excuse me, I have a really weird boner to get rid of. Bye-bye.
What did I just watch? What kind of creepypasta fanfic did I just watch? Really? You just shove your penis into someone's eye socket and then you just put it in your brain? Oh, dude, these creepypastas are sick. I gotta tell ya, some MLP creepypasta fanfic makers or writers are sick, guys. They're sick. No offense to any of you guys who are watching this. Now, excuse me. I'm gonna go puke in the toilet. Oh,